Hello to people from Australia on our time zone, and welcome to this presentation, but also to people from around the world. I hope you've had a good day, the other side of the world in the US and other parts of the world. We're very excited to be here today to share our story, and joining me is Matthew Wilcox, Innovation Coordinator with City Lab.
Good morning, good evening, hello.
We have Kieran McLeod, who's the business analyst here at City Lab.
Hi everyone, welcome.
And Rosie Mills, who's our design intern.
Hey, how you going?
So we're just going to kick off and get into it, but as Colin said, it is an interactive session. We welcome your questions. Also, we will be showing you some of the applications that have been created using our data. We're very excited that Melbourne was again named the world's most livable city for 5 years in a row by the Economist Intelligence Unit. And Melbourne's unique strengths include we're an internationally competitive and resilient economy. We have a highly skilled professional workforce. We've got proven commercial strengths as the financial services capital of Australia. We have extensive capabilities in the knowledge, creative and digital services sectors. We also have demonstrated leadership in sustainability with a fantastic sustainability program here at City of Melbourne. We have world-famous sporting and cultural facilities, and we're a world-recognised events calendar. But one of the key things about Melbourne is that we really do have a high quality of human talent in the city and lots of smart people that we work with. So in relation to the Australian government context, there's 3 levels of government in Australia: federal, state and local government. So we are a capital city, Melbourne City Council, and we're the local government body, so we're responsible for the municipality of Melbourne. Our elected council consists of a Lord Mayor, Deputy Lord Mayor and 9 councillors, and the administration has a newly elected CEO, Ben Rimmer, 5 directors and about 1,200 staff. So that just gives you some context about our organisation. So the functions under the Local Government Act really state that we plan and provide services, facilities and infrastructure for the local community. We strategically plan and we regulate land use in the municipality, and we raise revenue so we can perform our functions and provide services that we do. We also make and enforce local laws, and we have some other duties under such acts as the Food Act, the Building Act and the Public Health and Wellbeing Act. So really what all of this means is that we deliver a lot of services and infrastructure for our community, where we look at building for our city's future and providing important infrastructure. We also understand around the community and providing services such as maternal and child health support, also services for elderly and homeless people, and we work across government and with non-government partners to deliver these. As a capital city, it is a very vibrant city. There are things happening across the city every night of the week, lots of events, and we're very proud of the culture that we have here in Melbourne.
Okay, so it's Matthew here. I'm just going to provide you with a little bit of extra context just around Melbourne. So Lorraine's given you a fantastic overview of the sort of role of the city government here. As you can see by the map, we're part of Australia. We're the capital city of the state of Victoria. So then when Lorraine mentions the fact that we're a capital city, that means we're a capital city of the state of Victoria. Now the other important thing to notice and mention too, when we talk about Melbourne, we're actually specifically talking about this tiny, relatively tiny, I think it's roughly 30 square kilometre pocket in the city of the centre. in the centre of the city. So that constitutes the City of Melbourne. We don't, when it comes to international forums and other events, we speak on behalf of Greater Metropolitan Melbourne, like our Lord Mayor will get up on stage alongside other Lord Mayors from around the world. But when it comes to the services that we offer, and as you'll find out, the data we collect, it actually stops at our borders. So that's where our jurisdiction finishes. So as you can see, it's very much a very centralised part of the centre of the city. Now the interesting thing is, of course, our citizens' experience of the city doesn't stop at those same borders. So this has all sorts of implications for the way that we are able to provide data to developers and others who are interested in doing things with it. Whereas we're lucky in the sense that we have an entire team devoted to this. What we do find as we sort of move out and encounter other municipalities as they get closer to the edges of the city, perhaps those same resources aren't there. So that cuts to the point that our role as a leader in the space, sort of in a local context, means that we have to be working very closely with others and encouraging them along the way. And I think the other thing to point out too is Melbourne, no different from any other city, it's a messy city, and I mean that in a good way. As a local authority, we're not responsible for everything. We have to work very closely with and rely on very strong partnerships with public transport providers and both the state and federal government levels in terms of adding to the services that we provide to our local cities. So yeah, we'll just hand over now to Lorraine, who's going to explain a little bit around the sort of strategic aims of the council.
So as Matt mentioned, we operate within a context of a capital city, but what's really increasingly important for us is how we work across government and with our community. So to this end, our councillors have really placed open data as a priority. It was a council action, and establishing a culture of open data and open government and applying the right policy settings from when data is first generated or collected really has been shown to deliver benefits not only to economies but also communities, as we know, both here and overseas. So in terms of our open data alignment, as we can see, it aligns directly with three key goals that the councillors have for this city. One is a knowledge city, where we're providing high quality data to the community. The second is accessible and transparent and responsible organisation. So we really and truly do want to be the most open and accessible local government in Australia. And the third one is all around how we're managing resources. And this is a key point, and we're going to talk more about this as we go along in the presentation. But what we found on our journey is open data not only makes sense from a community perspective, but it actually makes a lot of sense for how we manage our services internally and how we share and work together internally. So to this end, with our open data program, we really had to understand how are we going to do this when we did not understand what open data was. So this is where we took our innovative approach using CityLab. And I'm going to hand over to Matt to talk to you a little bit about CityLab.
Okay, so in reality, we could devote an entire webinar to our CityLab journey, but we don't have that luxury, nor will I sort of go into too much detail today. But just quickly, it's a function that's emerged over the last sort of 2 or 3 years within the City of Melbourne. It's in recognition of the fact that cities are moving at a much faster pace, as is the speed of innovation. And we need a way of exploring ideas, prototyping new services, understanding the way that different technologies might impact on how people experience the city. And we've been working very hard over that period, that sort of last 2 or 3 years, to develop a practice here within the organisation to help with that. So all of our work is driven by our principles. So we have a very much a bias towards action. So we try and learn by doing wherever possible, and this will shine through in the story as we continue here. We're inclusive. We try and bring in as many different perspectives and understanding and knowledge at the start of projects. We're people-centric. It's not enough to design a solution for a department. We're very conscious of the need and the experience of our users and everything that we do. Wherever possible, we think holistically. We understand that a project also has an impact on the greater system in which we're operating. So we're very conscious of trying to influence both through the work that we do. And lastly, this isn't a top secret skunk works. We're very happy and prepared to share everything that we learn along the way. These sorts of webinars are very much a part of that, and our contact details are at the end. Feel free to shoot us through any questions outside of this, this discussion as well.
So the open data pilot itself, really, as Matt said, the whole learn by doing approach was really powerful in this context. So what we actually did, which was key, was we said we don't have all the answers, but there are people out there in the community who have been doing this. So we reached out to them. We held a series of public workshops where we tested and validated our assumptions around not only our internal expectations, but also in relation to what the community expects from an open data program and a platform. This iterative approach allowed us really to test as we went. So the first key part of this was getting a platform up and running. We didn't wait until we had all the requirements in place. What we did was we got a platform up, we put a beta in the corner, we used the Socrata platform, and from this whole pilot, what we learned was the following things. So firstly, leadership. Leadership is really important, and we had that with the council action. Secondly, governance. So as part of this whole process, it was key to have a good governance body. They were in charge of all the decisions and kept up to date on where everything was at. The people on that governance body were the head of legal, head of risk, governance, IT, and people and culture. Thirdly, the whole putting a beta site in place and learning by doing, that was a fantastic way of approaching this. Fourthly, our internal data capability and standards. So we completed a data audit across the whole organisation, and we'll talk a little bit more about what we're doing in that space later on. But what we realised is we really need to address internal data capability, literacy and culture. Providing data to the public. So what we realised here is context is king, metadata is very important. So it's not just about throwing data over a fence and hoping that people are going to do magic things with it. It's putting context and working with that community to understand the challenges that we face as a council. So to this end, Council adopted in November last year an open by default policy position supported by 5 key principles to safeguard sensitive information and rigorously protect privacy. So a very successful approach, but also we've now got the foundations to continue doing this to leverage the value.
Okay, so we've recently just relaunched our new platform, and as Lorraine sort of alluded to, we did kick off with an initial platform that we did throw beta up in the corner, and we were searching high and low to try and find a picture of it because we really wanted to show the fact that it doesn't really matter what it looks like, as long as it functions correctly. So this platform here that we've ended up with after more than 12 months worth of work was we got the help of a local developer called Greg Moore from Moon Creative, who really helped us to sit and think about the design and searchability of the system, and we sort of designed the whole thing from scratch around the kind of data taxonomy, mainly using 4 personas, which we sat and thought about. And so our main users for this new platform are a change maker, which is a person that wants to build evidence for a particular cause or wants to influence the city decision makers. an entrepreneur who is looking to start a new service or business in Melbourne, a future-focused planner who's scheduling works or events in the city, and your citizen reporter who's an advocate for council transparency and interested in knowing what's happening. So we found that, like our search, our site navigation and both the data sets and the navigation are focused around these main people. Another point that we're focusing on now is we've got lots of data sets up, and I mean, we threw up a lot of data sets to start with, and we wanted to now focus on getting them more accurate and more real time. So our focus lately is the real-time data sets that we've got up there running. And we've recently just kicked off, as Lorraine alluded to, a data capability project, which is looking at council data as a whole and sort of working out the architecture and the best way to handle that data from the source systems all the way through to our open data platform in a manner that people can use. So as part of this, we have taken a collaborative approach with other councils. So as you'll see from this map, while our colleagues in the state and federal governments of Australia have been putting open data up for a while now, for local councils it is really just the beginning. So we've been working quite closely with the other two councils there that you'll see have quite large data sets. So Geelong Council and Ballarat, they're two of our bigger regional capitals in Victoria here. And as Matt said, we do like to acknowledge that as bigger councils, we do have the resources and the funds, I suppose, to move with open data at pace. Whereas we've had conversations with people from other councils in Victoria that their IT team is literally just one person. So they're in charge of doing anything from help desk all the way through to open data. So it's not as easy for them. So it is important for us, as Matt also mentioned, as part of our principles, to really share the knowledge and bring them along with us through the journey. As part of this, we have started up with the help of Steve Bennett from the Open Knowledge Foundation and mainly Will McIntosh from Geelong, a group of councils who get together on a fortnightly basis and have Skype calls and just discuss local government open data. So just outside of this, feel free to jump onto opencouncil.org, which is a website where we are, mainly Steve is publishing open data as a collective from all the councils that you'll see on that map there. And also we're working on getting standards together for just open data sets for all councils. And as sort of part of all this, we have been working obviously with not only the other councils, but with our smarter communities. And I'll just pass over to Rosie to fill you in a bit more about that.
Great. So as a part of City of Melbourne's data journey, it was really important for us to understand why we were doing this, why release data. And this involved connecting with the smart community that exists within Melbourne. These people are designers, developers, entrepreneurs, ideas people, storytellers who want to use our data for different reasons to provide new services and enrich the city. These people wanted to be involved in solving the challenges the city faced, and they were able to provide services the council were not necessarily equipped to roll out themselves. One example of this is GovHack, which is an open data challenge that's run across 30 locations in Australia and New Zealand. It's a completely volunteer-run organisation in collaboration with Open Knowledge Australia, and 2015 saw 1,800 of the region's best and brightest developers, designers, data visualizers, entrepreneurs and storytellers tackle civic challenges using open data within 48 hours. The City of Melbourne in 2015 provided 5 challenges to the competition, and we based those around key themes from our organisation's action plan. And I'll just pass on to Lorraine to talk about what's next for Melbourne Open Data.
Okay, well, we're actually just going to jump in and show some of the applications first in relation to open data and talk about some of the things that have been created. So we'll go into a bit of a show, don't tell now and just jump into a few of the applications. So I think the first one that we're going to talk about is this one where the media have taken our parking sensor data, and what they've looked at is really where do people overstay their welcome in the city. Now, our parking data, everyone really wants to get this data. It is the key data set in the city, and we're working to make this more readily available and hopefully in the not too distant future in real time.
I think the important thing there we want to show is that a lot of people that we've spoken to, especially here in Australia, are kind of hesitant to put data out there because they feel the media will jump all over it. Whereas that is one of the only articles we've had from our open data, and it actually was a very positive one for the city. So that's important. This one here that Rosie's showing is actually one that we've only just been shown recently. So this person, who their name eludes me at the moment, has used our 2014 parking data and is now visualising all parking events through our parking sensors. So this is when a vehicle comes in over the top of the sensor, stays, and then leaves. And so as Rosie moves along the slider down the bottom there, it shows you in all the red dots the cars that have overstayed their welcome. And this one here, where he's highlighted the potential fines that could have been collected that day, and not necessarily the ones that were. So the next one here is, this again was created by Greg Moore, who helped us with our platform. It basically maps our urban forest, which our urban forest team here have won many accolades for their work, and so this just helps them to show how many trees exactly are in the city. So as Matt said, our 32-kilometre radius does have over 70,000 trees. And this, as Rosie's got there, actually allows you to email a tree, which people do find quite interesting, but the tree does email back. So feel free to jump on and select a tree in Melbourne and email a tree if you wish.
I think the great thing about this application and emailing a tree is really the 21st century tree hugging. And yes, we've received a lot of media coverage around the world for this program, but the reality in Melbourne is that the city is heating up. We have a massive heat island effect. It is a big challenge for our city. What we're doing through this program is having that dialogue with our community so they understand the challenges that the city is facing.
And I'll just add too, I mean, if when you look at this map, anything that you see that's got a red dot basically indicates that there's less than 3 years worth of life left for that particular tree. So Melbourne went through a massive drought in the early 2000s into the sort of early teens. And we're now sort of reaping the consequences of that. Trees that to you or I may appear quite healthy as you walk along the street, in reality are actually in serious dire straits. So there's a huge piece of work happening across the city, not just to replace but to expand that urban forest. And we use this sort of rich engagement tool as a great way of starting that conversation with the community and really increasing their ability to engage with the challenge and connect with the work that we're trying to do.
So believe it or not, this is actually a visualization of our open data platform. So basically what we've done here, we actually use this internally more to understand our data practice. So as I sort of mentioned before, when we were putting our data sets together, we thought about the different personas that they could relate to. So here we've got, and it just simply shows you the clusters of data that we've got, and it helps you sort of make sure all our data is well-rounded and pointed at the right person. And another way, obviously, all Socrata sites have, it's also done by by category, sorry. So we pick 6 or 7 main categories that we've worked with here, and then obviously it all shows every keyword that they're associated. So it actually helps you work through and then see maybe where you've got some places where a keyword over here is very similar to one over here, or for example here where we haven't got one defined. So it helps us go in, and if you click on it, we can go and then straight into that data set and clean up any errors that we've got along the way. Now we'll just go back to what's next for us here at the City of Melbourne, and I'll hand back over to Lorraine.
So I might just note the three email that we received, one of the samples, because this really is fantastic, and it does talk more around, you know, there is a massive human element to the city, and digital is important and data is important, but ultimately it's about people, and this just really connects the city and the work that we're doing. So this is an example of an email that we received about this beautiful tree. So in relation to what's next, we, as you can tell, we've actually been doing a lot of work here internally, but the main thing for us is we've kicked off a whole data practice piece of work, and we've got a team here in City Lab working on that in an agile way, and basically what they're looking at is improving our internal data literacy and capability, but also the data standards and governance. So across council, we have lots of people who collect, store, share and manage data. What we're trying to do is have not only a consistent way of doing that, but a more sustainable way of doing it. We're also looking at the whole data architecture, because what we've realized is this should all work together. Data in terms of a resource. Data is the new oil. It's the new oil for governments. So we should be treating it as an asset that is as important as the physical realm. So to that end, Ben Rimmer, our new CEO, who's come on board, he really gets all of this. He has set up a smart city office, which brings together three areas of the business. But essentially, it's bringing the rich data and expertise from the GIS team, so that's our spatial team, and city research, together with a forward-thinking, customer-focused, nimble and innovative approach to explore a digital and technology-enabled future. So finally, in closing, really, you know, as we can see, more and more data is going to be at our disposal, but it's not about the data, it's about what we do with that data. How are we using it to plan and understand the city? So in terms of closing, what we're doing at the moment is we're developing a practice that lets us learn and innovate at speed. We're placing the needs of our customer at the center of everything that we do. And we need to ensure that not only do we have the capability in-house, but also within our expansive network, which is the community, the academia, and private partners, to prepare for disruptions and opportunities we can't even imagine. But more importantly, the key here is that we're shifting our mindset. So we no longer aspire to anticipate change, but instead we are prepared to drive it. I'd like to thank everyone for taking time out. And as we said today, we really want to share these lessons. We want to connect with other cities and talk about what we're doing, because truly it's only through collaboration and knowledge sharing do we ensure that we're all placed in a better way to manage the challenges that we'll face. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
So
Well, thank you, Lorraine and the City Lab team. That was, I think, an excellent overview of your open data program. Thank you for sharing the best practices and the lessons that you've learned to kind of advance that program in a way that's collaborative, interactive, and it helps to support the initiatives of the City of Melbourne as a whole. We have a few questions from the audience today that I was hoping we could pose to you. We have a few moments here at the end. Let me just go ahead and ask the first question, and then we'll turn it over to the City Lab team. So the first question that I have is the open data policy structure available?
Yes, yeah, definitely. So it's on our open data platform. So anyone can go there and see what the policy is and the 5 key principles. But as Kieran said as well, we're developing a whole range of standards for how we share data at that local government, but also more broadly government arena in Australia. And all of that is there to be shared and built on as well.
That's fantastic. I love how not only is the data open, but also the structure and the policy is open and available for everyone to access. There's another question from the audience I'd like to pose to you. Question number 2 is, how many people are on the City Lab team?
So the team is, it is what you see and who you've heard from today. But the way that we work is we pull in subject matter experts from across the business, we bring in partners, we bring in the community at the start of the process. So really it's about working with all our networks and collaborating. So the team itself, yeah, there's 4 of us at the moment, yeah, and they're a great team.
Fantastic. A third question from the audience is about your aldermen. And the question is, how did you get your aldermen to see the benefits of open data?
I can perhaps answer that one. It's an interesting one. I mean, we'll be the first to recognise that we're quite late to the open data party. That's one way of describing it. We've watched this explode across Europe, the UK, and especially the States as well for a number of years now. And actually tried from within the administration, tried to advance an open data agenda much earlier than we sort of find ourselves at today. But it's required one of the councillors to get involved. So there was a new council elected in 2014, I think, and one of the incoming councillors, Councillor Stephen Mayne, is a very strong advocate for transparency in government. And basically, they've then set the agenda. We've got a very high-functioning council, might be one way of describing it. They manage to get things done. They're very forward-thinking. They work well together as a group, and they've all, got right in behind this idea, and it's really helped push things along on the administration side, having that strong support from our councillors.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions from the audience today?
We had one question, last question. How are you using the system to drive C40 and GPC reporting?
The short answer to that is we're not at the moment. That perhaps will come out of the data practice work that we're doing. You're right, there's loads of sort of international clubs that we're members of. Some of the reporting overheads for that can be quite onerous. We'd like to see a day when all this stuff can be simply generated and the reports come away from the same data sources. But at the moment, that's still a bit of a manual process, but it's very much a work in progress for us at the moment. Great question, though. That's something we very much aspire to being able to do as well. And look, further to that too, I mean, we did a bit of an experiment over our summer, so sort of over Christmas, looking at applications for Internet of Things. We had a total of, I think, 10 environment sensors out installed across the city. And those 10 sensors generated an enormous amount of data. So for us, it's very much understanding where does this fit into things. We've got citizens, the community, increasingly being able to measure and sample the city themselves. we have to try and understand where does that data sit alongside the stuff that we officially, produce and sanction. So these are all questions that we're sort of wrestling with and very happy to explore with others who may be a little further along in their thinking.
Yeah, and the key to all of this is really the City Lab approach and testing and trialing things and learning by doing and feeding that back into our processes. So it's not only about us thinking about what we should do from a project perspective, but possibly more importantly, it's about applying technology thoughtfully, but also understanding what we should do from a policy and a strategy perspective.
All right. Well, thank you, Lorraine, and the City Lab team, and everyone else for joining today's webinar.